Tonight I'm again been invited this time to introduce you to a film. It's a film Penny and I, as producer and director, are planning to make in Guyana's heartland. I'll use the mic.
Yeah, you know. Use that.
All right,
voice.
You mind if I sit down?
No, okay.
This is a project.
Hello.
This is a project for which, as Joe told you, and you spoke. Well, you know the title. It's Myra and the Jaguar People. It's a film that focuses on Guyanese children. And it will be the first in a series of those 13 films that you've been hearing about, growing up Caribbean. That's the actual title. But Myra and the Jaguar People will be the only film that focuses on the interior of Guyana, which, as we all know, is where our first peoples, and therefore our first children, live. It's a simple story. It's centered on an Amerindian community that I got to know very well and to admire greatly. But what's the film about? It's about a young girl, Myra, and her brother Myroon, who, as a result of a terrifying encounter with the jaguar in the rainforest and at night, they discover for themselves the practical wisdom behind the traditions, the beliefs of their community and their way of life. Now, the rainforest in this film will not be a backdrop. The music of its trees, its rivers, its waterfalls, the bird song of the forest will all play in the film. Here is a 5-minute of the kind of atmosphere we want to convey in the filmmaking. In the clip were Glendon and Jean Allicock, and an elder in the village who offered to let us use his yard and got a group of neighbors' children together so that we could set up that opening scene. All improvised. The jaguar, now officially a protected species in Guyana, was borrowed from the internet. But in the actual film, it will be both a real and an imagined jaguar. We think that the film will be an exciting and unusual film offering, perhaps for the first time, an intimate, revealing but respectful look at life in one small Amerindian Guyanese Amerindian community. You know, we as coastlanders, most of us, have our own attitudes and ideas about the interior. But I think that we've been influenced, sometimes without knowing it, by a legend about our interior that has been both a blessing and a curse. I'm talking about the legend of El Dorado. It has helped to form our concept, the world's concept, of the South American rainforest and our interior. Okay, a few facts. Guyana lies in one of the planet's oldest geological formations, the 2 billion year old Guyana Shield. We share the world's most extensive primal forests, which contain half of all the species of plant and animal life in the world. Guyana is also considered to be the location of the fabled city of gold, El Dorado. Now, we're all familiar with that name. A utopia, a world of natural beauty, wealth, happiness, dreams coming true, and so on. In coastal Guyana, the name appears frequently. You don't see it very much. There's an El Dorado village on the East Coast, a travel agency, an El Dorado hotel, an El Dorado magazine, and most impressively, the now legendary international award-winning rums produced by Demerara Distillers Limited. But the name is found everywhere. There was a 15th century city in Andhra Pradesh near Hyderabad, famous for its diamonds, called Golconda, the El Dorado of India. There's a youth theatre company in Haiti set up by film director Raoul Peck, a former Haitian Minister of Culture, called the El Dorado Theatre. Its major aim is to help foster a sense of community in young Haitians. Now, the Guyana School of Drama and Theatre Arts, recently opened by our Minister of Culture, could, I believe, have a similar effect on our youth, which for the Haitians was to encourage them in that sense of being Haitian and being a community. Now, the legend of El Dorado came out of a factual event. You probably know the Golden Man is really an interpretation of the Spanish El Dorado, the gilded man, an ancient Colombian Amerindian community ceremony for installing their new caciques. It had to do with putting oil on the cacique and sprinkling him with gold powder and so on. But that ceremony became, well, it morphed into a fabulous city of gold called Manoa, hidden somewhere in the Guyana forest. Joe Singh, whose knowledge of the interior is legendary, once showed me on his wall map exactly where Manoa is, the city that became known as El Dorado. References to El Dorado appear in world literature. Milton both refer to El Dorado. Milton naturally includes a reference to its inhabitants as the sons of Gerayan, meaning Guyana. And we all know Sir Walter Raleigh's fruitless search for the Golden City he believed existed in what he called the rich and beautiful empire of Guyana. Today, that dream of a Guyanese El Dorado in the interior persists. It doesn't require actual evidence. It exists in our consciousness. It's a landscape of dreams. As Mark McQuarrie puts it in a poem called Heartland, that is the central spider in our web of dreams that weaves the net of El Dorado. Now, I've read Joe's illuminating book on growing up in British Guyana and found myself moved and uplifted by it, especially by his discovery as a teenager of the beauty and power of the interior. Now, that was also my experience as a teenager, and it was the point at which my own life in the arts began. Like many of us older Guyanese, I grew up in colonial BG, largely ignorant about the interior. But there was a kind of tradition then as now in the Caribbean region of seeing Guyana as a fabulous but problematical country. The past and present difficulties of our cooperative Republic of Guyana, for instance, still appear to most observers as not only unfortunate, but anomalous, a peculiarly Guyanese problem. Now, how can a land so rich in potential ever be economically or socially depressed? In fact, Guyana still remains a contradictory landscape even to those of us who live here. Now, history may explain some of those contradictions. We all know the country suffered Dutch, French, and British occupation. The capital was first called Stabroek, then Le Nouveau Ville, then Georgetown as it changed hands. You know, place names like family names still reflect this polyglot historical inheritance. Le Repentir, Mon Repos, Plaisance, Better Verwachting, Vaartslust, Onderneming, Met en Meer Zorg, Queenstown, Buxton, Bachelor's Adventure. But these are the names of historical conquest. They're coastal names. Look at the map. Those names are dwarfed by the sheer weight of Aboriginal names, mostly in the interior 90% of the country, and they serve as a constant reminder of earlier, deeper roots. Mazaruni, Kurupung, Matumari, Hosororo, Mbaimadai, Pomurun, Ayangana, Guyana. But fortunately, there is a growing awareness among coastlanders, and Iukrama plays an important role here, that there is indeed something special about our interior that needs to be preserved, something more precious than gold or diamonds or oil. Turned on our Kaikur him. The point is there's a hinterland into Jonestown. And that hinterland is the universal human longing for another Eden. A pre-lapsarian primeval world, a Shangri-La and El Dorado that would offer both religious happiness and material wealth, God and gold. That's the contradiction, and it's a dangerous one that powers the myth of El Dorado. Let me explain what I mean from my own experience about dangerous. When I was a boy growing up in Georgetown, British Guyana, I remember being told about the unimaginable riches in the interior. My grandfather, who died and is buried in an unmarked grave in the interior at Sansankopai, was known as Diamond Jokes, the discoverer of diamonds in Guyana. So I was prepared to believe all those stories. But Diamond Jokes, like so many starry-eyed gold and diamond seekers, died a poor man. But he was rich for a while. In fact, his house, the big huge house he built, is the spot where, I think, nice irony, where the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs now stands. You know, our leaders never tired of telling us about the vast potential of the interior. It had a religious ring to it, you know, like an article of faith. And it always gave me, I'll confess, a feeling of secret pride, a sense of security. I felt nothing could destroy or damage our Guyana, land of 6 peoples, many rivers, or El Dorado. What did it matter that when we turned on the water taps, we got Coca-Cola coming out? We had gold and diamonds in the interior. You simply had to be brave enough to go in there and get lucky like Diamond Jokes. Now you see that image of vastness, of inexhaustible potential, simply there, needing neither good husbandry nor concern, was and is a fiction. And it is that Eldoradan mindset which still encourages the exploitation, pollution, and destruction of our and the world's natural resources, including the air we breathe. You know, I don't need to tell you about the threat that poses to the people who live in the interior. The South American rainforests are the lungs of the globe. The so-called primitive Aboriginal belief that the trees of the rainforest are holding up the sky, and if you cut the trees down, the sky will fall, doesn't seem so amusing now, especially that we know it's a fact. Science has proven it. The air and the sky above us do depend on the rainforests and rivers. And we are using up or destroying those natural resources faster than Mother Nature can replenish them. Our human garbage is growing faster than the trees did, which we are cutting down. No one seems to care, no one is responsible. We avoid thinking about it, as we simply avoid the growing hills of garbage. After a while, we don't even see them. We have to begin to reclaim, to reconstruct our buried Guyanese native traditions of community, the Tumatumari, or sleeping rocks of our polyglot cultural identity. This is and has been a major concern of our artists and writers, and our filmmakers need to be concerned too. Let me quote from the late Dennis Williams. Now, he was speaking in his book, Pages of Guyanese Prehistory, about the Amerindian legacy of community, respect for, and adaptation to the landscape. This legacy, Dennis reminds us, is the element in our heritage that the Europeans neither discovered nor destroyed. We cannot ignore it without great loss to ourselves. Research has shown that the jungle of the Amazon basin gave rise to and supported flourishing, complex societies with highly developed art forms. This represents an indigenous cultural history spanning more than 10,000 years. This is the background to the so-called marginal Aboriginal presence in our region and in the world. One important legacy of primal cultures is the connection they make between their arts of the imagination, the landscape, and their way of life. It's a connection which most developed urban and coastal societies have lost. Among the Oriala Amerindians, the most important social concepts are mati, or respect for kinship, and aipas, or lack of respect and untruthfulness. Modern research into the way of life of primal people suggests that respect and truth-telling would appear to be shared concepts of community life in the worldview of all Aboriginal cultures. They are the unspoken principles behind their interaction with others, with us, and the main characteristics that they look for in their leaders. We should be so lucky. The most enduring ties for them are those of kinship and community in the widest sense of that word. Our urban societies suffer from too much aipas and not enough mati. It is mati, respect for kinship and community in the very broadest sense, and their relationship with the environment that will finally reject what is essentially the aipas of history. And that is one of the reasons why we want to make this film. You know, for us and the region and beyond, we are part of a worldwide dilemma where wealth and cities grow and societies and people decay. Let me give the last word to an important but neglected historian, Gordon Lewis, in his brilliant study, Main Courses in Caribbean Thought, in 1983. Lewis reminds us that our Amerindian societies are not primitive, they are primal, ab-original, before we think of origins. Prehistory is theirs. And Lewis goes on, in their gentle character, they reflect a chieftain society, halfway between a simple egalitarian society and an organized state system. The final impression is one of a peaceful society at ease with its environment. Peaceful society engaged and at ease with its environment.
The first time, dozens of excellent films made by filmmakers all over the region. Not one had I ever seen on my Barbados television screen. That was shared by most of the Caribbean people at that conference. They had not seen, not one or 10, but dozens of extraordinary films which we never got a chance to see. I realized then that for us in the region to get our work seen by people, we had to work cooperatively, regionally, pooling talent, resources, and equipment to produce that could make it on the international screen. So Growing Up Caribbean was born. It became a series of half-hour fiction films about childhood experiences across the region. About childhood experiences, not necessarily for children, although we've ended up with some of the scripts would be one that children would enjoy immensely. We put out a call across the region for treatments. Treatments is a film term for a 1 or 2 page outline of a story idea. We got an overwhelming response. 36 submissions came in. We had to get this down to 14. Originally we were going to do 13, but we had to do 14. We couldn't resist it. It was a difficult task. But some were obvious choices. For example, when you get a script outline from Michael Jilks, for example, there's no discussion. You jump at it. So 14 stories from 10 countries, from Jamaica down the island chain to Guyana. We spent the next year working with the writers and story editors to produce the actual scripts, funded by an international agency in Barbados called the Caribbean Export Development Agency. It was an interesting regional experience because Caribbean people don't just stay in the Caribbean. They were in Bermuda, they were in London, they were in France, they were in New York. And so working, if it hadn't been for Skype, we would never have done it. The writer-directors that we chose for the most part those who would also direct, include some of the best known names in the region. Alwyn Bully from Dominica, Francis Ann Solomon from Trinidad, Michael Jukes, of course, Alison Saunders from Barbados, as well as some virtual newcomers who showed great talent. The main point is that with a significant body of work of such a series, you have a more attractive and more marketable package in the international area of broadcasters than one individual film would have. Our Caribbean people abroad almost never get to see themselves, their culture, their dialogue, their skin color on television screens or in theaters in the US or UK or Europe or Canada. The idea of this series has struck a chord across the region. And I hope it will here in Guyana with the wonderful story of Myra and Myroon and their Amerindian world. When I was a child, I grew up in the bush of Belize. For 4 years, we lived out in the interior of Belize, which of course is exactly like the interior of Guyana, very similar. And I must tell you how profoundly affected I was by our visit to the Rupununi in 2011, when Michael and I and our cameraman, Omar Estrada, another Caribbean connection from Cuba, scouted locations and shot the teaser you've just seen tonight. The scale, the breathtaking beauty, the peace and the quiet, the remarkable sense of community of the people, and the reverence for nature around them. You have here one of the treasures of the globe. I went back to Barbados and I told everyone, why are you going to Europe? Why are you going to Miami? Why are you going to London before you've gone to the interior of Guyana? It starts here. If, with the film Myra and the Jaguar people, we can manage to communicate and share even a small part of that magical, unique beauty with the world, I will be happy, as Michael describes it. I'm also connected to a movement called Awaken the Dreamer, or Be the Change, which is a global movement now spreading very fast, in which people understand that the world has been dreaming the wrong dream for a long time. And Awaken the Dreamer was started by the Achuar indigenous people of Ecuador. When the people from America went down to work with them, they said, if you're coming to tell us what to do, go away. If you're coming to work with us, we welcome you. And that dialogue and working has resulted in this extraordinary movement called Awaken the Dreamer. So Myra is the first film we'd like to make in the series. And with your assistance, Guyana can lead the way and fashion the model for what I hope will be a groundbreaking enterprise. Thank you very much.
You come to a place called the Ikawan Mountains. And then you stop on the summit, switch off your engine, and just sit there and look ahead of you. I guarantee you that by 6 o'clock you'll see 3 jaguars. I've done it on a few occasions I've seen it. Plus a whole cacophony of macaws, parrots, parakeets, etc. 5 o'clock in the morning. The third one is to come back to Colin. I am vice chair of the board of the protected areas, and I know, as Guyanese say, I know for a fact that there is a project on to rehabilitate what we call the free parks. The national park work, as you can see, has already commenced with the drainage, and there'll be lights are already being put on the perimeter, so that those persons who wish to exercise or to perambulate until 9:30 in the night will be able to do that safely. In addition, just 2 weeks ago, a public-private partnership arrangement was being worked out with Conservation International, the Bihari group of companies, for a proposal to upgrade the zoo, the zoological park. We have a design of what it's going to be looking like when it's completed, and all the points that you made about animals having sufficient area to roam. There'll be fewer animals, but a lot more user-friendly and friendly to the animals. The consultancy to take the idea to a proper plan and phasing of that plan. Dr. David Singh from Conservation International, in collaboration with the Nihari Group, they're financing the cost of that consultancy. And I know that by the end of June, the plan will be made available, or will be completed and made available, so that corporates, for example, who wish to adopt a particular area will be able to do so. And the botanical gardens, the same thing. So it's a 3 parks initiative. The third one I wanted to touch on is to say that those of you who are here for the first time, we'd like to welcome you. And in relation to the appeal, so to speak, one of these folders will be left here, Vanda, so that persons who wish to come in their own time and go through the documentation will be free to do so. And it has information such as the bank account number, etc. There are 2 the local contacts, Nisha, Jem, yeah. Jem has agreed to be the local contact of those persons who wish to make a contribution or to inquire more about how they can contribute to this. Please do so. All that's left for me to do now is to thank our presenters, Professor Michael and Penny, for their informative, passionate, and profound presentations. It's a pity that we didn't have this recorded, but I do hope that Michael, who's here until the 27th, is it, will have the opportunity, 25th, will have the opportunity not only to be interviewed on television, but we'll be able to deliver extracts of what he presented here tonight, so as to better enable the Guyanese public as a whole, or persons in Guyana, to have an appreciation of the benefits that will accrue in informing persons to help to develop that type of community awareness and bridge that divide between the coast and the interior, as well as take that regionally. Vanda and Joan and all those who contributed to the preparation and the presentation this evening, thank you very much. To our friends from the media and those who are handling the IP, thank you very much, and thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. And please remain back to fraternize, socialize, and to enjoy some of the victuals. Thank you.